you see a vision that nobody else can see.
Crazy.
And, you believe in it, but the chairs are not full yet. And maybe they're just completely empty altogether. And you've got to have that conviction as the founder or as the athlete or as the race car driver to say, no, I'm going to keep going on this. And I know I'll bring the right people around me. And eventually those 50 chairs will be filled. So I thought about your story, and I mean, it is filled with 50 chair moments.
Got a couple. Got a new one coming right now.
You got a
That's
book
fun.
coming out. I mean,
Yeah.
just for people that don't know you yet, you have had just an amazing career. You played in the NFL, but the storyline, as I know it, and we'll get to dig into this a little bit, is you were cut 12 times, 13 times.
13 Baker's dozen.
Yeah, 13 times before you got to the NFL, and then you got that opportunity and you made the most of it and you had an amazing NFL career and then successfully transitioned into financial literacy. And I think that was part of your passion along the way. You were always that was always part of your journey, but then you turned that into a company that was, educating kids and really taking that education that you learned in the NFL and really translating that into the vehicle of money for students and helping them understand that. And then now you're doing that for your fellow colleagues,
Who
through
was
the
the
NFL.
original dream? That
Yeah.
way just you gotta build a dream, like you say, one chair at a time.
So let's start there. Let's start, because when you hear people's stories, it reminded me a little bit of Rudy.
Absolutely. Love it.
I love that movie, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's go through this. So did you go to school always knowing that this was going to be, you wanted to
No.
play pro? Okay.
And that's I love the 50 chairs concept, and I tell people all the time, entrepreneurs are crazy. And if it works, they call you a crazy genius, but we all start crazy. Like you said, we see something that nobody else sees. And that is the definition of a crazy person. I went to Washington State. It was a good program, a good school, but it wasn't an NFL factory. And I was not a top tier recruit or player. And so I looked at it as like, I got to go. I'm going to be an accountant. I'm studying for the GMAT. I'm going to go down this lane. And my senior year, actually, I vividly remember riding up an elevator with a scout on his shirt. It said the San Diego Chargers. And as we got off, he turned to me and he said, "Jed, can you show me which way Coach Doba's office is?" And I said, "All right, yeah, I'm headed that way. I'll walk you over there." "How'd you know my name?" That was that was kind of strange. Okay, cool. And he said, well, you're one of the guys I'm here to review. We're looking at you. We think you can play at this next level." And 4 years in college, and this was, my eighth, ninth, 10 year of football. That was the first time that thought ever even crossed my mind. Play in the NFL? Are you insane? Like, those are monsters, first off. And secondly, like, as an athlete, I don't deserve to be out on that field. And so it is, sometimes somebody else plants the seed. He planted that seed in me. And as I looked at going, we're about to see the NFL draft take place again here in April. So many young men are going to go in the later rounds. They're going to go undrafted. I was an undrafted guy. And you immediately were told by 32 teams, if you're undrafted, you're not good enough to be in this league. We don't think so. We watched you on film. We see what you can do. We know your measurables. I mean, Gary, I don't know how fast you are, but I run a 5:03:40. And in the NFL, that is laughable, especially being a skilled position. Every time I stepped on the field, I was 1 to 2 steps slower than every other human being out there. And as you go undrafted, you have to tell yourself they were all wrong. Every scouting department, every general manager, every coach, every person who saw me doesn't understand what they just missed. The Tom Brady quote, "I'm going to make sure everybody regrets not picking Tom Brady." He did, but he was crazy when he said it. 6th round pick, quarterback, 6th round. Nobody's going to remember you. Ends up being the greatest of all time. And I look at that idea
Hmm.
of where we are losing a lot in youth sports. And I'm going off on a tangent a little bit to start, but there is a curse to talent, and everybody mistakes talent at a young age and says, this is going to be the one who pays off. Now, LeBron James proves this theory incorrect, but LeBron is the one who breaks the mold. You see talent early on, and everybody has these dreams and starts to fill the chairs. It's
Mm,
the guys who have the dream and the chairs are still unfilled that you look at and you go, man, I again running a five flat. I went into every battle knowing I'm a step or two slower. How do I prepare? How am I going to win knowing I'm at a disadvantage? That skill, that
yeah.
is the entrepreneurial mastermind of I'm supposed to lose this. The draft, the scouting department, we came in on Monday and was like, Jed can't block Gary. Jed is not good enough to block Gary. Game plan on Sunday, Jed, go block Gary. And it's like, ooh, I have to believe I can do that. I have to be one of the crazy ones to see the vision. And so, yeah, like you said, I got cut 13 times, ended up being a Pro Bowl fullback, but it was that mindset of Freddy Krueger. One of my coaches called me Freddy Krueger. He said, Jed, you just don't die. You don't go away.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I believe that that mindset, that failure mindset is what has propelled me.
it's interesting as you were talking about that moment in the elevator, because I got to imagine like you're going to school, you're following the path, like, hey, I'm going to be an accountant. Was that in your family kind of
No,
DNA? Like, no, okay,
opposite. Yeah,
opposite.
my
Okay,
family's all lawyers, and so my dad wanted me to go to law school, and I had some conversations, and people are like, "You should learn the fundamental of business. Accounting is the
uh,
fundamental of business." So that's they said it would open more doors.
okay. So you go into accounting. You're playing football, and you're not even thinking about the NFL. And you happen to be in the elevator with the guy who says, "Hey, do you know where the coach is?" But he knew your name, right? You're like,
Yeah.
"Whoa."
Wait, and like if some random like if I'm walking past you on the street and I go, "Hey, is this a good restaurant, Gary?" You
Yeah.
you look at that person like, "Huh,
Yeah.
you're
How'd
a
you know
big
my
deal."
name? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that had to be like a little bit of a spark for you. Like and I wouldn't say this guy was a mentor or this, I don't know what the relationship ended up being, but there's those moments in your life where someone speaks something into you and it's like, maybe I could go do this. So what happened after that? Like, this guy gives you this moment and you say, he sees something in me, maybe I'm not seeing in myself quite yet.
yeah.
What
I
what
mean,
happened next?
that was week 3, week 4 of my senior year. This was the first year I started as a tight end, and I ended up leading the nation as a tight end in receptions. Again, I've something 40-yard. I'm a 6'1". That I had a reporter tell me I was the shortest starting tight end in NCAA that year. There's no reason I should, but that message, I again never spoke to that man again in my life. Never again. But that comment changed what I saw in the mirror. That comment changed what I believed I could be. And I started going out on the field with that confidence, that swagger of not only do I deserve to be out here, I could dominate. I can do anything I want to. And I mean, that same transition happened in the NFL. I got cut. I bounced around a bunch. I had coaches tell me, I mean, this is again, wouldn't be allowed maybe today, but in football, anything's allowed. There is no HR department. A coach told me, Jed, you look like a rich white boy walked off the beach. I don't think you'll ever make it in this league. And I took that to heart. And again, you take things personally. I'm an emotional guy. I take everything personally. I'm writing a book on my journal of all my emotions. But I looked at that and I said, all right, cool. Got it. So how do I change that? I grew out a beard. I grew my hair for 4 years. I believed Samson and Bible. Your strength grows with your hair. I looked more of the character. I didn't look like you see today on screen. I looked grungy. I looked, and this is a compliment in the football world. I looked like a dirtbag. Coaches want their fullbacks, not their receivers, not their quarterbacks, not even their tight ends. They want their fullbacks to be dirtbags. And so I had this option to go mean, and I'm not a mean dude. Naturally, I'm just not a mean person, or crazy. And so I grew the hair out. Didn't shave. I wouldn't shower. I wanted people to look at me and go, this guy's worn the same thing throughout training camp. I would wear the same thing every day. Why? Because I wanted them to believe I was kind of crazy and I was this character. And I named that character. I got the name of that character from high school, and it traveled with me through college. It was Jedzilla. So Zilla was kind of my nickname and alter ego. But it was that fundamental moment where I looked in the mirror and started to believe I could do this. that's when I started to survive and have success in the NFL. And I don't believe if that coach ever said that to me, I would ever really lean into, okay, I am trying to play a football game, but I'm also trying to play a character that this guy believes should be on his team, that fills the role he wants me to fill.
Yeah.
And that kind of understanding, and this is why, you know, people leave football, leave sports and go, I'm starting back at scratch. And it's like, no, you've just competed in $1 billion organization. You need to look at all the things it's taught you. And that one
Mhm.
taught me every team, every company is looking for talent, but they're also looking for characters that fill their chairs. Which chair am I looking for? I want you to fit the model.
Mm.
And that really taught me kind of the character that I had to portray, which you can call it crazy, you can call it a lie, you can call it a facade. I had to fake it before I believed it, and that was the beginning of the fake it before you make it kind of thought.
Man, I mean, that's just as a lot of the people that listen to this podcast in the middle of building something, and
Yeah,
it's lonely, man. It's a lonely period of time. You and I have talked about this a couple
yeah,
times, but somebody speaking something like that into your life, I just can't. I've told you about my mentor, and I know you have mentors to your life. Just the power of that is incredible, and for you, it was life changing, right? Like that guy, never
absolutely.
saw him again, but he spoke something into your life that absolutely changed that trajectory for you. So look for mentors, get guidance. Yeah.
I want to follow up on one comment you just made. It's lonely. And this is what I learned being around the best in the world, being around greats. I mean, greatest wide receiver to ever live, Calvin Johnson, being around Drew Brees. Greatness is lonely. There's a reason there's not a lot of standing room at the top of the mountain. There's a reason the air is thinner and a lot of people just can't survive. You look at being an entrepreneur and you realize you just got dropped off on an island with a hatchet. A great book, little throwback generation right there. But the idea that you are alone, and so many of us look and say, well, I don't like that, then that wasn't your journey. Entrepreneurial, you got to be not accept and not always wanting to be alone, but if you want to be great at anything, you have to understand that all the good people around you, you have to level up. Like you have to go above what good is. Good is the enemy of great. Jim Collins, what a great quote that is. And if you want to truly build anything, you got to understand that it is going to be a lonely, lonely road. Not only because A, nobody else sees it, but B, nobody knows what the hell you are really trying to do or change yet. So greatness is lonely. You got to get real comfortable for that.
So as you're going through this, I feel like everybody who sees the ending of the story, like I see the helmets behind you, which is, very cool. It's part of your history, and you got to the other side. But that ugly middle, I want to stay there for a second.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the first, and I'm sure this was an evolution for you. The Jed at the beginning of that journey and the Jed at the end, cut number 13, I'm assuming was a different Jed. And what were you thinking every time you got that call? You went in and
Coach wants to see you.
yeah, coach wants to see you, and it's pack your bags,
Yep.
go home
Bring your playbook.
and bring your yeah. And so what was that part of it like for you? And what did you do to stay mentally tough and say, I know, I know I can do this? Was there a point in there where you said, maybe I'm just not in the right place? Um,
Absolutely. I mean, number one, every time it was heartbreaking. I mean, even my last time in Dallas, blindsided, and this was going into year 8, and it hurt just as bad as the first. So, why is because somebody is killing your dream. Somebody is literally walking up to you and saying, "This thing that you're chasing is over. Get on a plane and go home." Now, there may be another call, there may not be. I was fortunate that the phone kept ringing. That is a blessing that I'll never, fully appreciate, but it really developed in me growing up. In my backyard, we were actually a basketball family. My dad, both my brothers, all played Division 1 basketball. I was a little shorter and thicker than they were, a little bit there, but My dad invented a game called King for a Day, and I had two older brothers. And in the backyard, we'd play one on one basketball. And every time we played, the younger brother, me, would lose. I mean, we played a hundreds, thousand times in the backyard. I remember the 2 days I walked off that court as king. Now, as king, you get to boss the other brothers around, take out the trash, get me a drink. I want this for dinner. Go grab me. And I remember number one, if you're only going to be king for a day, be a very gracious king and kind of know, you're probably not going to be in this role tomorrow. But number two, what it taught me losing every day was that I had to remove what I saw as success from the outcome, from the scoreboard, if you will. I was probably going to lose, but that was no longer my measurement. I truly began looking at it and going, man, today I scored 3 points. Yesterday I only had one. Man, today I blocked that. I mean, today I stole the brother ball from him. I started to look at, was Jed improving? Was my progress being made? Despite the score, despite the result, was I getting better? That is the mentality I've approached in every athletic environment, high school, college, and pro. As an entrepreneur, as a father, I've really tried to settle myself from measuring in wins and starting to see instead progress and improvement. And this gets into my inch mentality, but looking at that idea of, man, I might fail, but this is just FAIL, my first attempt in learning. And so each time I would get cut in the NFL, I would take the moment and yes, I would totally question my abilities, question who I was. Was I just a rich, spoiled kid from Orange County who was never going to be able to make it? Or could I take that moment as a moment of progress? Review what did I improve on? Now, one of my stakes and claims is I was a linebacker in high school, a tight end in college, and then a fullback in the NFL. I'd never played fullback until I got to the National Football League. So there was a big measurement of, who did you come in here as and where am I leaving? Did I progress in this new position? And each time I did, I would say, Jed, you got better. Look how much closer you were to making it. But even more importantly, I would force myself to sit and I would journal about the veterans that I was around. What were these guys doing that kept them in this locker room as I flew away and went home? And it was each time I left that I would find man, that 18-year kicker, this 15-year quarterback, this 12-year offensive lineman, this 13-year safety. Who could I learn from that I witnessed, that I observed, that I could absorb and even steal some of what they were doing? And so each time I got cut, I looked at two measurements. Was Jed better? And the answer was yes. Even the coaches were saying, you are right there. And then who could I steal from? And that rookie to veteran mentality was just me absorbing being around the best in the world. And so those cuts never, I'm not going to say they were never as less painful as they went on. They each hurt because I felt like I was getting closer and closer, kind of like playing a video game. Like I could see the flag at the end of the level and then boom, I fell into the lava.
Yep.
And so each time it hurt just as bad. But again, losing, failure, defeat is only a negative if you don't grow from it. And I grew every time. And I today as entrepreneurs, you and I know you're gonna lose days. Can you look at it and say, but look how far we've come. Look at where I'm heading and look at what the progress I've made. So yeah, each time hurt, but each time was a lesson.
Amazing. So in the NFL, just curious, you talked about being around the best in the world, and
Mhm.
at that level of athlete, you are. I mean, even just to be in the, to compete, to just be in the NFL, you're at a certain level. What was the environment like? I think actually a lot of people wonder, like, what's in the locker room? Are people willing to share? Are they giving you those lessons learned? Are they rooting for Jed? Like, hey, I really like this guy. I hope I see you next year. Like, what is that environment like?
Number one, I mean, obviously, little self plug that this is what I journal about. This is what I wrote about. This is what Fourth and Goal is kind of dedicated to, that insider look. It is a compete without question environment. Every player, every day, every position. And the best part is everybody understands we have a singular purpose. Our singular purpose is the Super Bowl. 32 teams, there's going to be 31 that failed to do it. But we all know every day, off season, training camp, during the season, where this journey is heading towards. So that unification really gives you an understanding, but the environment inside the locker room, game respect game. People, football is a beautiful thing because nobody cares about your race, your religion. Nobody cares who you are. If you can add value to the team, you're welcome. If you can help us get this win on Sunday, you got a seat next to me. And that's really the ultimate criteria. You'll be made fun of, you'll be poked, you'll be all these things. If you can help us win, you are in. Now, as you do look at the competitiveness, does have some dark side, does have some negatives. I have seen veterans tell young guys the wrong answers. Why? Because you want them to mess up. You don't want them to take food off your table. It's the confident veterans, the ones who are secure in their spot. Maybe that's because of money or talent or just their careers. They're the ones that I really came to respect. The guys who would look at you and go, "The day you're able to take my job is the day I need to walk away." I actually had a long snapper in Philadelphia start teaching me how to long snap. And he's like, "Jed, if you ever get as good at me at long snapping because you're more athletic, can tackle, and can block, you have my job." And so I looked at him, I said, "Well, why are you teaching me this?" And he goes, "Because you'll never be as good at me on long snapping." And it's that nature of, if I am confident and secure enough, I have no problem teaching you because I understand iron sharpens iron. I want to be in a building, in a room where I am being pushed. And that's where that talent kind of spectrum really gets challenged. If I'm the first rounder and the guy who's always been number one and never been pushed, I don't like competition walking in the door. But if I have been that guy and I realize this dude and his talent is going to make me that much more, because at the game of the NFL, you are no longer leaps and bounds ahead of anybody. You're never a step faster than most. You're never this much bigger. It's small, subtle changes that really separate the goods from the greats. And so if you're not in every day seeking and finding, where is that small inch? Where is that thing I can steal? Then you're never going to become what is lonely, that at the top, that greatness level. Again, working out with a guy like Calvin Johnson, the dude was the building. The NFL understood this guy was better than any human being on the planet at his position. We all came to agreement. If you went one on one, you put one NFL defensive back on Calvin, we're throwing him the ball like that. He's at an advantage. And that guy was in there at 5:45 a.m. every morning, training, rehabbing his body, lifting, focused. And you just look at it and you go, this is why the next first round wide receiver will never be as great. Why?
Mm.
Because he got to the top and he kept climbing. And so, yeah, the competitive environment is something I miss. I miss the standard. And the standard is everyone is here. We are all locked in. There are no slappies. You know, some you get 100 men. There are some guys who are just different. At this level in this building, you are locked in, you're focused, and the standard is effort, and the standard is as good as you can give. And then the expectation is to get better.
Wow, man. I mean, what a environment to be in. I feel like you can only get better or leave. Like that's
That's it.
really that's the
And you don't
only
leave, you get replaced.
you get
That's what's
replaced.
hard. You show up some days in Dallas. I was in the hot tub getting ready for a day of work, and my replacement came and sat in the hot tub across from me. And I looked at him and I just go, damn. And when I got back to my locker and got changed, they were like, "Hey, Jed, coach wants to see you and bring your playbook." And I was like, ha, that's not fun. But
That's
yes,
not fun.
you keep the team getting better. Are you improving or are you declining? Because the moment you're too old in your performance, even if you're still good, but you're not getting better, they're replacing you. You're too expensive now because there is the business side of it as well.
Yeah. I don't know if I wanna talk about just for a second because you got the 12 kinda come to the coach's office with your playbook, go home calls. But then then there's this moment, right? I want you to take me there because it's one of the it's one of those Instagram moments. You see it. It's like the
Highlight.
thing that everybody dreams of or thinks about when they think about going to the NFL. So let's talk about that for a second. where were you at? Did you know this was coming? And then what was that moment where that the phone call came?
Yeah. I what's so What's really cool is when the phone call came, I was expecting it. And why I was expecting it was because of a preseason game. We went to Houston, played the Texans. I'm with the Saints now. And we opened up the game with a play called Bob, back on backer. I'm the back guy. It's a lead ISO. So it's Jed, we're going to part the seas, and it's going to be you and that monster over there in the hole. And those guys. It was Brian Cushing. It's like these were dudes. Um, and in that preseason game, we marched down. We ran Bob 5 times in a row. I went in and gave it everything I had, and we walked down and we scored a touchdown. And I vividly remember after that game, a teammate coming up to me and saying, "Congratulations, you just made the New Orleans Saints." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "I've been here for 6 years. I've never seen a fullback do what you just did on that drive." And I got chills just thinking about it. And it was earned. It was 100% earned. And I actually put on TikTok those four of those ISOs and said these were the four plays that made me get a roster in the NFL. I didn't decleat them, but I moved them, and we moved them 6 inches. And so once the last preseason game, which the NFL has changed a little bit in the rosters and how it works, but it used to be your fourth preseason game, the starters sat. They didn't have to play because it was like, get ready for the season. You don't need to show anymore. I remember my running back coach coming up to me and going, "Jed, you're not playing this game." And my instinct was, no, 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 no. Let me get a couple series in. Let me show, like, let me prove. And he looked at me and goes, "You're fine. We don't need to
Uh,
see any more from you." And I literally walked to like my best friend on the team, Brian De La Puente, and hugged him. And he's like, "What's up, man?" He goes, "I think I made it. I think I did it."
wow.
And so it was that series of, again, I had my character. I had Zilla. I started to believe in who I was, but I also went into those last camps with the mentality of, I'm going to make the team or I'm going on injured reserve. Like, that's where you have to get to. You got to fight fire with fire. These are the biggest, baddest dudes out there. I couldn't walk into the land of monsters anymore hesitant or afraid. I had to be the monster. And it was that training camp that I started to look at NFL linebackers, defensive ends, dudes I don't want to meet in a dark alley, and say, "You now fear Zilla. Like, I'm not afraid of you. You better know that my job out here is to hunt you."
Mm,
And it was a cool switch. But yeah, that moment after that preseason game against the Texans will be something I cherish forever.
amazing. So, and then if I'm not mistaken, you went on for 7 years in
Yeah.
the NFL.
Yes, sir. And every time I stepped on the field, and this is what people, understand the business of it, I was an undrafted, no name. They always paid me the least amount of money they could pay me, which was still great. I'm not complaining about that. But every time I was on the field, there was a guy making millions of dollars standing on the sideline. I, in my 7 years, beat out probably 10 to 12 different fullbacks. I would take their job during the season. And even in Detroit, my last year, the guy I beat out had made $2 million that year. He didn't play at all. I took all the beatings and all the hits. I made a third of what he made. He made $2 million to watch me perform. And so when you look at an undrafted guy making it, give him even more a tip of the cap that you not only beat the talent, you beat the business. They don't want you out there. They put money in their voice on the line to not let you be out there, and they're paying somebody to watch you work. That's why I love that undrafted mentality.
Love that. So I'm imagining as you're let's talk about the business for a second because um, you have finance, you went to school in accounting, so you had a business background, but I can imagine you through the course of, the 13 cuts and then the 7-year career, you saw things that weren't going right. I mean, it's almost a cliche to say that, sometimes you see professional athletes and they have millions of dollars and then you see them 10 years later and they have nothing to show for it. And so what was that spark? What did it happen in as you were watching things play out for people and saying, "Hey, there's gotta be a better way. These athletes are making millions of dollars. They need to have a way to protect that or at least a mindset and how to do that." What was that spark for you?
It was my rookie year, Cleveland. I was staying at an extended stay apartment, and my girlfriend at the time was there. And I remember getting my one of my first active game checks and looking at the amount of money and going, "Man, this is awesome!" Like that was 1 week of work. That's cool. I spent every dime of it before it even hit my bank account. Like I remember looking at that paycheck and going, "I'm buying an engagement ring." Money came in, money is going back out the door. 100% a great decision. 18 years later, she's still around. Like it was the best investment I've ever made. From a financial perspective, it was a huge mirror on how little I really understood money, on how I understood how it worked, what I was supposed to be doing with it. I was an accounting major. You give me 100,000 widgets, I can fill out some financial statements. Never once did I have a class that said the Collins family was going to walk away with money. Here's what they should do. And so it was that epiphany of money came in, money went out. That was my relationship with the dollar. Um, that moment, I went and started to go to Barnes and Noble and Borders bookstores and actually just pick up the gurus, walk down the personal finance aisle, see the Susie Ormans, the Dave Ramseys. Rich Dad Poor Dad has changed millions of lives. And I started to teach myself that language of money. But it was that epiphany of if I, being a kid who grew up in California or in Orange County around money, went to college, was an accounting degree and a business major. If I was never taught how to handle a paycheck, I got to imagine 90% of my teammates weren't either. And it was that aha moment of like, Jed, if you are going to break and defy some of these odds and statistics, which right, wrong, or indifferent, 70+% of athletes fall on financial hardships. I argue, look, people blame professional athletes. Give $1 million to an accountant, a doctor, or anybody at 22, and let's see how they handle it. But I looked at it and I said, I have to teach myself. I am not going to be a mega money millionaire guy in this business. I'm going to get an advantage only if I capture it. Will it truly be a dream? If I end up with those zeros, it's going to be a nightmare because the game is going to take from me physically, my mentality. It's going to take. If I don't end up with an advantage, it was a nightmare, not a dream. And it was really that moment that I started teaching myself. And as I started to learn and even little subtle things. If was one step ahead of somebody else, I loved showing them what that step was. Hey man, here's a high yield savings account. Did you know about this? You got 400 grand sitting in your savings account making nothing. This is at least going to make like 4%. Like that's a massive, massive step. Not the final step, but it's the next step. And as I was doing that, I really started to see what became the dream of, man, one day I want to come in and be a teammate, not an employee, not an advisor or an agent, but a teammate that shares how to speak this language for the sole purpose that guys capture their dream and don't experience that nightmare that everybody wants to put on the newspaper. And so, yeah, it's taken 20 years to build, but that's where the fullback of finance kind of thought came in. That off season, a mentor of mine challenged me and said, ask me a million questions. Ask me whatever you want. But if you really want to understand this, you got to learn how to fish. I can't just be giving you the fish. The certified financial planner certification in financial planning is a great degree and it will teach you a lot about this language. So I started while traveling 7 years of my NFL career studying for that CFP and ended up passing all the prerequisites before I retired.
Wow. Wow, man. And so, how do you think, it's always easy. There's that famous quote by Steve Jobs, you can connect the dots looking backwards, right? And you kind of it's obvious to see it now. But what did you learn in the NFL that you say, you know what, this, yes, I did learn this in this context, but really I can apply this to any part of my life, right? I was talking to a race car driver who was telling me about his racing experience, and you start to listen to those lessons and you're like, hey, those aren't just race car lessons. And I'm listening to your story about being in the NFL, and I'm like, these are lessons that transcend the locker room and the field and the helmets behind you. These are lessons that really make you a different person no matter what you're doing. Those skills transfer. What do you think that you brought over into, hey, now I'm going to start a business around this, and I know what it takes to do this now.
I mean, we've mentioned some of them. Find your mentors. I call them graybeards. Find your graybeards. Inches, understand progress is made inch by inch. Trust your routine. Being around a guy like Drew Brees and seeing his habits on a daily basis is truly another world. But where it begins for me is the be a pro. I got to go into 13 different buildings, 13 different NFL head coaches, but be a pro was always a quote that was in a lot of the buildings, up on a lot of the walls. And I began to really see what that message was. It was the expectation. And I really started to try to unravel what does it mean to be a pro? And I came up with three kind of characteristics of what a professional is. The first is confidence. I have to believe I deserve to be here. I have to see myself doing the job. There's a big difference between confidence and cockiness. I think confidence is the internal voice, cockiness is an external voice. But the first person that believes any crazy dream you have has to be you. I talk a lot about with my girls now as they go out on a court or on a field or whatever. I say the first person that has to believe you're the best player is you. And if you don't, believe me, nobody else will. The second part of be a pro is trust. And you look around a team, an organization, the people I'm working with have to trust who I am showing up every day. Am I going to be on time? Am I going to be clear eyed? Am I going to be ready? And then they're going to have to trust that I can do the job. I believe I can do the job, but my team now has to trust. Stephen Covey has a great quote of trust dividends and trust taxes. Every relationship you have is a dividend or a tax. You should measure them and really have some come to Jesus moments with those taxes. But the third one about what a professional is, and this is that standard I was talking about earlier, is a pro walks in the building each and every day and asks themselves one question: how do I add value today? How do I make people learn my name today? What is it that I'm going to bring? What is it that I'm going to show? What is it that I'm going to do that makes people see the value I bring to this building, to this team, to this room, to whatever I'm trying to bring? Confidence, trust, and value. Again, you look at starting your entrepreneurial journey. If you don't believe, nobody will. If you don't sit some people down in those 50 chairs that trust your vision and your work ethic, and then if you don't find the room and the problem that you can add value to, I mean, I think that is kind of the best framework I have seen translate. Now, I have plenty of other ones that I love and I lean on, but that be a pro frame is really the one that I look at myself as an entrepreneur and say, this is the measurement. Like when you're lost and when you're get cut or when your thing just isn't working, be a pro. Go back to, do I believe? Do they believe in me? And then what are we bringing to add value?
Amazing. I think that there's a lot that you could take from that as a listener. Is that in your book?
That's that is mentioned,
Mentioned.
but this is so fourth and goal. I believe in the Saints, and it's my seventh season. I actually just had my first daughter, and I realized I'm getting to the end of my career, and I started to challenge myself. I said, "How can I capture this for me, for all these lessons that I'm around?" And so I journaled every day in special teams meeting every day. And that's not to say check out a special teams. Don't do that. But I've been in special teams for 18 years. I can run down on a kickoff. I looked at capturing the day to day and capturing those stories, those moments. I referenced the rookie to veteran mindsets, the be a pro, the inches, attack the knot, the find the graybeards. But the book is not necessarily around those principles specifically. It's more answering the question I get asked all the time. You played in the NFL. What was that like? Here is what I did on a day to day basis for January to January. Some of it's fun, some of it's sad, some of it's scary, some of it's really, really cool, but it's my personal first person experience. I look at the world of AI today and I think it's going to change and adapt so many things in our world. The one thing it will never be able to do is go back and tell me what Jed Collins saw, what I felt, what I experienced, what my part of that story was. And so I think coming out and saying, hey, this book is not a memoir. This is not something I looked at today and went back and wrote about my time playing. This was what I wrote down every day. And some of those are watching those be a pro moments and calling it out and going, look how confident this guy is. Look at the value this rookie just added. I would tell every rookie walking in, every person walking into a company, you want somebody to learn your name, add value. There
Yeah.
is no better way. I remember in New Orleans, the play in training camp where people started to speak and know even who I was. Before that, I was just a body that was passing through. And it's when you add value, you make people learn your name. So yes, I do talk a little bit about the principles, but it's more my daily experience, more what I saw when I'm lifting with Calvin Johnson or in a game with Reggie Bush. Like, what are these moments that I want to remember for my girls, and just the beauty and impact that journaling can have on someone's life?
Yeah, I let's talk about the legacy a little bit, because you
Yeah.
mentioned your girls. In fact, when we were starting, we were talking about dropping off our kids, at school. Being a dad, that legacy is important, and those stories that you kinda capture. But not only did you do this for your kids, you've done this for lots of kids, right? Through the work at My Money Vehicle in saying, look, financial literacy isn't something that needs, you shouldn't be 22 and it's the first time you're thinking about this. And you mentioned AI. So much is changing in the world and it's changing so fast. I think about this all the time. I think about what is the world that my 7-year old is going to inherit? What are the decisions that I'm making today? And what is that world that she's gonna enter into because of what we're doing now? And AI just seems to, like, trump every other thing that we've ever experienced. These aren't 10-year
Oh,
cycles. We're talking about 6-month cycles, 3-month
yes.
cycles sometimes.
ChatGPT is outdated. What? The thing a year ago that changed humanity? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, it's insane the change of pace, but you took it as a personal mission to say, financial literacy really does need to be at the earliest of ages. Walk me through that. And then in addition to that, I know you've been doing some work with the NIL. You talked about, hey, 22-year-olds, in the NFL coming out of college, getting $1 million paycheck. Those paychecks are now, high school level. You got high school kids been getting paid $1 million. Like, walk me through that. What was the vision there? What are you seeing in the NIL? And I can only imagine this is accelerating some of that. Let's spend a couple moments there.
Yeah. So number one, I got to start out with arguably one of my best stories. I signed the greatest NIL deal that has ever been signed and probably will ever be signed. That's a claim. That is a big, big claim. And actually, I just got to shake the gentleman's hand 2 days ago that was on the other side of it, and we both agreed. So I started out teaching LSU financial literacy, just like you were saying. I wanted to go back and teach young athletes this language. About 6 months before NIL broke, they started bringing me in more and more. And I'm sitting with the athletic department. And I go, I'm not complaining. Why are you bringing me in so much? And they say, well, the rules are about to change this summer. We're going to start paying these athletes and we want to prepare them. Awesome. So I go back to Washington State, my alumni, and I go, do you guys know about this? Like, LSU is a big deal. They're a big program. I understand they're probably ahead of the curve. We need to be ready for this. Like, I don't think we're going to be able to compete with them, but we got to be able to compete. And the first wave was very anti NIL. Universities were like, we're not going to do that. Don't touch our donors. Don't touch our money. We're above Notre Dame, Stanford. We're like, we're not going to play that game. Washington State, because we don't have a lot of deep pockets, said the same. Stay away from our donors. So I had to, and a band of Washington State alumni, come together and created our Cougar Collective. And I was the founder, and I was like, guys, this is happening. I've talked to them. I've seen it. It is going to change. And so as we did that, about a month into our journey of being entrepreneurs in this new NIL world, I get we have a new recruit, guy signs, and Cam Ward is a Washington State player, and we got to get him a package. I mean, Cam is the steal of the NIL kind of transfer at the moment. And we end up getting him about $100,000 and a truck, which is nothing to sneeze at. But then he leaves a year or 2 later, and Miami gives him about $3 million. So he went from 100 grand to 3 million. And the Tennessee Titans take him number one overall in the draft for 48 million. So if you're measuring like what the greatest NIL deal ever signed was, Cam Ward at Washington State, 100 grand. He ended up making 50 million and this is, so I teach the Titans now and he's there and he's one of the young men in the front row asking questions. He wants to know like, hey, why is this taken out of my paycheck? Hey, okay, a trust. What is the trust? What rules can I set up? He is trying to speak this language because he is a business athlete. I don't work with student athletes anymore. I work with business athletes. Some of those businesses are 16, some of them are 20, some of them are 26. But the message and the idea is we need to start showing them and seeing them as a business first. Their athlete, that is a great, but they are a walking, talking, breathing brand. And so I look at kind of who I get to talk to today with professional athletes, National Women's Soccer League, NBA, WNBA, NFL, like that was the dream. But as you just mentioned, it is going downstream. We are not just getting it at 22 and 25 anymore. We're getting it at 15. One of the things I was told in 2015 when I was leaving the game and I said financial literacy is a passion, I had a bunch of teachers, high school teachers actually tell me, Jed, you can never create a curriculum. It's really cool what you're doing, but you could never build a curriculum that would go into our classrooms. We want you to come in, we want you to talk for a day and maybe leave a pamphlet, but I love when people tell me what I can't do. And it was that kind of epiphany of like, how do I take what I know as an athlete, which is the mindset and the habits and the communication. I'm not going to talk above these students' head. I'm going to talk with them. And then the CFP and the expertise I have, how do I translate that into a format where they understand it and more importantly, actually go and take one action from it? And so it was that challenge of like, no way you could do a curriculum. That was the origin of Money Vehicle. That was the beginning textbook, workbook, 500-page teacher guide, 150 videos later. We have a full fledged semester long curriculum in schools, to which again, I just say, yeah, tell me what else I can't do. But the day and age of NIL has evolved and shifted so much. And I do want to connect these two dots because one of the reasons Fourth and Goal is coming out is I truly believe in the future. As you're looking at your kids, I'm looking at mine. I cannot and not going to try to predict what job they should go do in a decade. But in the future, I don't think there will be original thought without pen and paper because the moment you put it into a digital frame, it's going to improve it. It's going to autocorrect. It's going to change. It's going to do all the things. Heck, even with our memories, we're already starting to do that. So I look at the future and I go, if you want to have an original thought, if you want to create a personal human brand, if you want to be human in the future, you have to journal. You have to document what your thoughts, your emotions, and your feelings are, or else the computer is going to tell you what you remember. And so I'd see NIL today and I go, this is the pivotal moment for young business athletes. Everybody tells me they want NIL. Everybody tells me they want to build a brand. You don't get a business without the documentation. Why people listen to me is I can go on for 100 stories that I sit and just scribbled about. I just wrote to myself to remember it. And now when I go back to it, now I can reflect it on a moment's notice. That is the skill of the future because anything I can build with a button, anything I can click and change and do is not what's going to be separates you. What separates you is your story. And as entrepreneurs, as leaders, this is the moment you need to wake up and realize I have to document the journey, the struggle more than anything, not the highlight reel social media post. That's the bullshit everybody thinks they want to see. I want to hear about the struggle and about these moments that you pivoted, that you changed, that you had the aha and realized where you were going because you captured it.
Yeah, I could not agree more, man. It's interesting. I was having a conversation. I was in London a couple weeks ago, and we were obviously everybody, talks about AI. And I made this prediction, and I believe this is kind of the sentiment that you're also saying is at some point, because everything is so perfect, people are looking for the imperfect to know that
Mm.
it's human. And, it's like this. interesting world that we live in because, ChatGPT and resumes and people's writing, it's all just perfect,
Perfect.
perfect grammar. And people are starting to look for, even in HR and recruiting, they're looking for the person that actually wrote it and there's a misspelling, or a comma's not in the right place, because it tells you that it's a real person that did it. And I think there's going to be this what's the word I'm looking for, this just intangible moment where you say that's a real human, that or a real person actually wrote this, right? What a different world we're going to be in. So,
I mean, that is, I 100% agree with you. I think we are going to crave, and I think obviously the one of the few things AI will never replace is human to human contact. Like go to a concert, go to a game, like in person events, because we just want that feeling. I mean, you and I, we are in virtual worlds. You flew to London, which is awesome, but 80% of my job is sitting right here. Like this is so if yes, a misspelled word in the future makes me feel like it was a real human on the other side, I see where that connection's coming from because hell, I don't believe anything anymore. We're at the forefront, you're at the forefront of it. Any entrepreneur is at the forefront of AI because we're being forced to adapt and to change and to see. Gary, I've never said this before. 50% of startups were just killed in the last 6 months with Claude. Like just hard stop. What you thought you were doing that was amazing was, and it can do it for cheaper and easier. So as you do look at that, it's how do I create a human element? And this is why I the last 30 years of wealth was created by technology. I think that's amazing. And we've seen the billionaires. The next 20 years is going to be athletes and artists because they have one thing that's irreplaceable. And if they can capture their human personal brand, they are going to be billionaires. I leave Cam Ward, young man who's, oh, Jed, I appreciate everything you've done, blah, blah, good, respectful, and obviously already a mega millionaire. He's going to be $1 billion quarterback for throwing a ball. He's going to make $1 billion. That is insane, but that's the future we're headed toward.
yeah. So, as you're kind of thinking about everything that you've done, amazing career,
Not yet.
amazing career, the story of getting cut, making it into the NFL, being around that greatness, transitioning that into my money vehicle and helping not only students but student athletes. And then you're also coaching your teammates, your former teammates. They bring you in and you help them. In fact, when you came to Tampa, it was because you were training, you were teaching the Bucks,
There we go.
which is awesome. What if you were looking back at 17-year-old Jed?
It's not going to go the way you think, but you'll remain yourself. And that I take a lot of pride, even in what I'm doing now. You know, fullback finance is a cute little gimmicky marketing shtick. The job I have, when I tell people, well, Jed, what do you do? I go teach professional athletes how to handle money. Oh, I want to do that. How do I do that? Simple. Go play professional sports, become a certified financial planner, and then spend, I don't know, a decade being great in front of humans, and you'll nail it. People ask me, like, can you find somebody else to do what you do? No. I'm the only person on the planet I know of that is doing what I do. Now, there are advisors, and I am not an advisor. I'm not an agent. I don't have clients. I only work with students. But I would look at the 17-year-old Jed, and again, this is just the beauty of time and the beauty of being mature, and say, and it sounds so silly because there are so many days I've sat in this chair and just not believed it's going to end where I want it to end. But it is a process and it is a grind. And pressure is not something that should deter you. Pressure should tell you you're getting close. And that's what I realized going through the NFL is each time I played that video game level, I was getting closer to the end. We all want to experience it overnight, and that's just not the reality for some. Now, again, social media will show us, hey, this 17-year-old kid just made $1 million on whatever the heck. But I would tell you 17-year-old Jed, because my curse is as an ambitious man, I am an ambitious man. I always want better. That's the curse of being around greatness. I believe I can always improve. My daughters, my wife, they hate it. Like I don't sit and watch a sporting event and go, "That was a really fun time." I sit and watch it and go, "Why didn't that point guard run the do this? Why didn't why didn't the left defensive player make this change?" That's just instinctually what I've become. So I would tell young ambitious Jed, your greatest gift is that you prepare for the future and you live in the past in your journals. And I self reflect, I'm self aware, I learn from my past. But that means, as an ambitious man, I'm never present. And I would tell him, everything in your life is going to happen in the now, in the present moment. Just make sure to be aware and to be grateful when you're in the moments. Success and failure are fleeting moments gone by. You say I've had an amazing career. I take that honestly, and it pinged me because I'm like, no, no, no. What? I mean, have you been around Drew Brees? Like, that guy had an amazing career. As an entrepreneur, have you seen Gary? You have had three companies better than my, like, I don't see, because I compare myself to the 1%. And I love the 99 behind me who may look at me and go, "Jed, you're above," but I'm always trying to grow, and that ambition is a curse, and it's hard, and it's a hard balance as men today to try to juggle everything we're supposed to juggle and still smile and not lose our minds. And so, yeah, I would tell him, just continue your ambition, but also, again, when somebody gives you a compliment, like you've had an amazing career, don't throw it away. Like,
Yeah.
cherish it, eat it for breakfast, appreciate it, and then go try to find your inch today.
Love that. Do you still journal?
Every day. Maybe not every day, but I fly a lot, so usually I spend time on planes journaling. I have 2 daughters. I always journal around their birthdays or their events, like, "Hey, I wanna capture something for them that I can give them later." But yes, I honestly, I'm a weirdo, you can probably tell, but if you gave me 20 minutes and said, "Jed, go do whatever you want," I would go to something in sunshine with a view and just get my thoughts on paper. I love it. I think it's the coolest thing in the world to be able to travel through time. I just got to go relive the 2014 Detroit Lions season, which was a historic season for that organization. I got to go live the moments of that year. I get to go back and live my honeymoon, my child's birth, my story, because I captured it. So, yes, I am actually about to finish, I think, my 13th journal, and that's personal journals. I also have work journals, because I wasn't bringing my personal journal into buildings and things like that. So,
Yeah.
I think it has been my secret life hack. My dad tried to get all his kids to journal. He had 5. I'm the only one that journals. But I look at it and I say, if you ever want to be a leader, if you ever want to be a professional speaker, which I know is one of the biggest fears in the world, everything starts with your journal. Everything starts with you getting in it. I say pen and paper because I'm a little traditional. I actually have my daughters now on a Osmo camera that I have for my speeches. I have them record little 5-minute things into that. Hey, you just played a game. Hey, you just went to a birthday party. Hey, it's your first day of school. Talk to it for 5 minutes. Tell me about it. And I'm saving them in Dropbox and hoping, one day I give it to them. And I'm like, here's hundreds of you, like, throughout your life. Like, this is cool. But yeah, I think journaling, if you're going to, I don't know what to tell my girls. From a career, no idea. From a skill, journaling is going to be something that they definitely need to do.
I agree. I think they'll look back on those things and cherish it, man. I know we're at time. I want to say thank you for sharing that journey, sharing, what it was like when you looked out into the abyss and there those chairs were empty, and then seeing all 50 chairs, filled and moving on and to a new set of 50 chairs. So I love that. That's part of the mission of this podcast, is to make sure people know that those snapshots. There's a lot that goes between Jed getting cut and then Jed wearing those helmets that got him to that point. And I think it's important for people to know that that's just to be expected as part of that journey, and for you to share that wisdom, what it took to get through that, to stay mentally tough and see it through. So if people want to hear more, when does your book come out?
April 28th, so it's coming out soon,
Right around the corner.
right around the corner. And I will say, just speaking of those pivotal moments, speaking of those life changing, one of the moments in the book is called Cocktail Party. Kind of a dark reference. When you knock a man unconscious, his arms lock up, and it looks like he's holding two martini glasses. So in film, we'd always say, "Hey, you invited him to the cocktail party if you knocked him unconscious." Dark, but that was kind of our competitive spirit. And during this season, and one of the days I capture is the Lions playing the Bills. A young man gets knocked unconscious, and I walk to the sideline and I see my daughter and my wife. My girl's wearing big pink headphones, and she's 4, 6 months old. And it was one of those moments. And I'm going to spare the details, grab the book, get into it. But I wasn't in on the collision. I was in on the play. I heard the hit, and that moment changed me forever. And it began a battle with internally of, do I want to go back out on the field with that boogeyman out there? Do I want to go into the locker room and walk away? And so I'll let you kind of see that. It's going to be on Amazon. And as we know with this format, people don't read books. So it's also going to be Audible. I recorded the Audible. So you're going to hear me tell the stories as I experience them. But yeah, I would, Gary, appreciate this opportunity, appreciate our friendship, your mentorship, and truly just allowing me to share this story with your audience.
Pleasure, man. Always. Love you, brother.
Love you too.